It started with something small, barely noticeable. A flicker in my reflection. I remember standing in front of the mirror in my bathroom, brushing my teeth, when I saw my reflection blink. Twice, without me. I froze. My hand, still mid-air with the brush, trembled slightly. Maybe it was the lack of sleep. Maybe just my imagination. But didn't stop there. For days, things felt off. My dreams were growing clearer, more vivid. I'd close my eyes and be pulled into a world that felt more real than reality itself. And the worst part, I wasn't the one in control. I first noticed it 2 weeks ago. I had gone to bed after another long night at my dead-end IT job, only to wake up in a house I didn't recognize. At first, I thought it was a normal dream. You know, the kind where you just accept things as they are. But the details, the details were too sharp. The creaking of the wooden floors beneath my feet, the ticking of a grandfather clock in the hallway, the cold metal of the doorknob, it all felt too real. Too alive. And then I saw her. A woman. Mid-30s. Pale, with long black hair draped over her face. She was sitting at the dining table, unmoving. Her head was tilted slightly downward, like she was praying, or mourning. I called out to her. "Hello." No response. I moved closer. That's when I noticed her hands were shaking violently. Her fingers twitched as if she were trying to grasp something that wasn't there. Her nails were cracked and blackened, like she'd been clawing at something for days. And then suddenly she stopped. She slowly raised her head. Her eyes were wide open, bloodshot and empty. And when she spoke, her voice was not her own. "You're not supposed to be here." I woke up gasping, my body soaked in sweat, my heart pounding in my chest like it was trying to escape. I sat in the darkness of my bedroom for what felt like hours, replaying her words over and over again. "You're not supposed to be here." I couldn't shake the feeling that I had trespassed into something forbidden. But what terrified me more was how real it had felt. Like I had truly been in that house. Like I had seen that woman. The next night, I told myself not to sleep. I downed 3 energy drinks, put on loud music, even kept all the lights on. But at some point I must have dozed off, because I woke up in that same house again. Only this time, the woman was gone. And I wasn't alone. There were others. Figures barely human, standing at the edge of the woods outside. Watching. Silent. Waiting. Their silhouettes moved in unnatural ways. Jerky. Twisted. Their limbs too long, their necks too thin. I couldn't make out faces, only the glowing, faint red of their eyes. And somehow, I knew they could see me. I screamed. I tried to wake up. I slapped myself, ran headfirst into a wall, even tried biting down on my arm, but nothing worked. I was trapped. Inside a place I didn't understand, in a body that wasn't mine. And then came the sound. A low, grinding hum, like metal dragging across stone. It echoed through the house like a warning, and the air grew heavy. Something was coming. I turned toward the hallway, and that's when I saw it, the mirror from my bathroom. Only it wasn't reflecting me anymore. It showed a man. Not me. But I was standing exactly where he was, matching every move. And when I lifted my hand to touch the glass, he smiled. Not kindly. It was a knowing, cruel smile. Then darkness. When I opened my eyes again, I was back in my own bed, but something was wrong. My walls were bleeding. The photos on my nightstand had changed, faces I didn't recognize. And my reflection was still smiling. That's when I realized, this wasn't my dream. I was inside someone else's. And they were waking up. She didn't move, didn't flinch. Her head remained bowed, strands of her jet black hair covering most of her face. A chill crawled down my spine, and I felt that instinctual fear, the kind you can't explain, but know you should trust. I stepped closer, hesitant. The wooden floor groaned beneath me, betraying my presence. Her fingers were tightly clasped together on the table, trembling slightly. I was close enough now to hear her breath, shallow, shaky. I leaned in just enough to whisper, "Are you all right?" Then, without lifting her head, she spoke. But it wasn't in a whisper. It was in my voice. "Why are you in his dream?" My body froze. I took an instinctive step back. His dream? Who was she talking about? More importantly, how the hell did she speak in my voice? Before I could respond, her head snapped up, too fast, unnaturally fast. Her eyes were wide, white as bone, pupils vanished. Her mouth opened far too wide, and for a moment, it wasn't her face I was looking at. It was mine. The world around me shattered like glass. I woke up gasping back in my own bed, drenched in sweat. My alarm was blaring. 7:03 a.m. But something was wrong. There was a strange hum in the room, low and mechanical, like an engine deep underground. My walls were pulsing slightly, barely noticeable, like they were breathing. I blinked, rubbed my eyes, tried to shake it off. But the moment I stood up, I realized something terrifying. My phone. It was unlocked, sitting on the nightstand, open to a notes app. One line repeated over and over again, hundreds of times. "Don't wake up. He's still dreaming." I stared at the message on my phone. The words seemed to throb with an ominous pulse, as if they weren't just written, they were alive, breathing, warning me. Don't wake up. He's still dreaming. But who was he? And what did it mean to be trapped inside his dream? Before I could process anything, the humming in my room grew louder, deeper, like a monstrous engine awakening from slumber. The walls around me began to warp, twisting as if reality itself was bending. The ceiling melted away into a swirling black vortex. My heart pounded so hard I thought it would burst. Then, suddenly I was falling. Not through the air, but through layers of memories, images, and sounds that weren't mine. I landed hard on cold, damp earth. I was outside under a sickly yellow moon, surrounded by the same twisted figures I had seen before, the ones with glowing red eyes and limbs that jerked unnaturally. They moved toward me, silent and relentless. I ran. Branches whipped my face. My breath came in ragged gasps. The forest around me seemed endless and alive, closing in, whispering. Every step echoed a warning. And then ahead, the woman appeared again, the one from the house. She stood beside a shallow grave, her black hair dripping with dirt and something darker. She looked at me, eyes empty and accusing. "This is his prison. His curse," she whispered, voice barely human. "Who? Who's cursed?" I gasped. She pointed to the grave. "He's trapped between sleep and death. You're just his visitor. But every visitor leaves a mark." The figures closed in, their red eyes glowing brighter. I realized I wasn't just trapped in someone else's dream. I was becoming a part of it. A prisoner, too. I screamed, but no sound came out. The cold earth beneath me seemed to breathe, alive with some ancient, restless power. The forest was no longer just a place. It was a living prison, every twisted branch and shadow a cage, holding me captive. The woman at the grave, her eyes hollow, her face pale, watched me like a silent sentinel, waiting for something impossible to change. "Why am I here?" I choked out, voice trembling, though no sound escaped my lips. The world was suffocating, compressing around me, like a vice tightening on my chest. Her gaze pierced me. "You're here because he's lost. Lost between sleep and death, caught in the endless echo of a nightmare he cannot wake from." I wanted to run, to scream, to break free. But my body felt like it belonged to someone else, heavy, slow, and unyielding. It was as if I had no control, like a marionette tangled in invisible strings. The grave beside us began to glow faintly, a sickly green light leaking from the disturbed earth. Suddenly, the ground cracked open, and from the shadows emerged a figure. Not human, not quite monster, something in between. Its face was a mask of pain and madness, eyes flickering with despair. It reached out with trembling hands, desperate to touch the woman. But she vanished before its fingers could grasp her, leaving only a whisper in the cold night air. "You must escape," her voice echoed, fading like a fading heartbeat, "before the dream consumes you." The twisted figures advanced, their red eyes now blazing like fires in the dark. They circled me, closing in with relentless patience. Every step they took seemed to pull at my very soul, dragging me deeper into this nightmare. And then I remembered. The mirror. The one in the house. The one showing me the man who wasn't me. I needed to find it. I forced my legs to move, stumbling through the choking forest. Every branch clawed at my skin. Every shadow whispered threats I couldn't understand. But something deeper burned inside me, the desperate will to wake up, to escape this nightmare before it swallowed me whole. When I finally burst into the clearing, the old house stood there, silent, brooding, and waiting. The mirror gleamed in the dim moonlight, its surface rippling like liquid glass. I approached slowly, heart hammering. My reflection stared back, empty eyes, cruel smile. The man from the dream. "Help me," I whispered, though the words felt foreign. The glass rippled again, and I was pulled inside, falling, spinning, losing myself in a sea of fractured memories that were not my own. And somewhere deep within the darkness, a voice called out. "Lucid dreamer, you are trapped. Welcome to the lucid trap." The voice echoed around me, low and endless, as if it was coming from every shadow, every crack in the glass itself. "Lucid dreamer, you are trapped. Welcome to the lucid trap." I tried to pull away, to break free from the mirror's grasp, but my limbs felt heavy, like I was sinking in quicksand. The surface of the mirror twisted and warped, showing flashes of a life that wasn't mine. Faces I'd never seen, memories I'd never lived. And at the center of it all, a man. He was old or worn, his eyes haunted by something dark and terrible. That man, he was the key. The dreamer. Suddenly, a flood of images crashed through my mind, fragments of his story. He was a man tormented by guilt and grief, cursed by a terrible past. Once a scientist obsessed with exploring the boundaries between dreams and reality, he had performed forbidden experiments, rituals blending science and ancient dark magic. But something went wrong. He trapped himself inside his own dreams, unable to wake, his soul caught in an endless cycle of nightmares. And now, somehow, I was caught in the wake of his curse. The voice whispered again, colder this time. "Every lucid dreamer who enters the trap becomes part of the dreamscape. Their mind is borrowed, their will tested. Few escape. Most are consumed." I felt cold hands grabbing at my shoulders, pulling me deeper into the dream. The twisted figures from a forest appeared once more, their laughter a hollow, grating sound that echoed in my bones. But inside me, a spark ignited. A fragment of the man's own will, fighting to break free. I closed my eyes, trying to focus, to remember my own name, my own life, the real world. And then it hit me, lucidity. The moment of awareness that I was dreaming. I shouted inside my mind, fighting the nightmare's pull. "I am not yours. I am awake." The mirror cracked. A blinding light exploded around me, the dreamscape shattering like fragile glass. The forest burned away. The woman at the grave screamed, a terrible, haunting sound, before dissolving into dust. I woke up, or so I thought. The cold hands pulled at me with more force now, their grip icy and relentless, dragging me back through the shattered layers of dream and memory. I screamed, only to hear the sound echo back not in my voice, but his. The dreamer. The scientist whose face had haunted the mirror. The man who had lost everything inside this cursed realm. The one whose guilt had become a gravity that pulled others into his nightmare. I saw flashes of him again, performing rituals in a basement filled with strange diagrams and symbols, injecting himself with something black and viscous, staring into mirrors until his reflection no longer moved. He hadn't just gotten trapped. He wanted to stay. He needed new minds to survive. And I was next. I fought to remember something, anything from my real life. My bedroom, my name, the feeling of the sun on my skin. I screamed those memories inside my mind, as if anchoring myself to them would protect me. But the dream was changing. Now I stood in a narrow hallway lined with mirrors. Each reflection showed a different version of me, some crying, some screaming, one of them completely still, smiling. Not at me, through me. The smiling version spoke. "You're not the first. You won't be the last. He needs a vessel. You were strong enough to find him, and now strong enough to be him." I ran, not knowing where the hallway ended. I felt the floor shift beneath me, liquid, then solid, then nothing. A blinding light exploded before me, and then silence. I woke up in my bed. Same blanket, same walls, same morning light spilling in. I sat up slowly, heart pounding. My phone vibrated on the nightstand. One notification. Alarm 7:03 morgens. It was the same time I had woken up every day inside the dream. I got up cautiously. Everything looked normal, but the silence was too still, too perfect. My reflection in the mirror followed me just a half-second too late. My breath caught, and then I saw it. In the corner of the mirror, so faint it could be mistaken for a shadow, his face. Watching me, smiling. He didn't escape the dream. He escaped into me.